Wow, welcome everyone. It's amazing to have you all here online, utilising the virtual cloud technology our awesome industry has created. Of course, this was without COVID-19 in mind, but we managed the last 7.5 weeks well, and it's all been working, and here we are in level 2. My name is Simone Noynes. I look after the AWS distribution business for Westcon-Comstor here in New Zealand. Westcon has been successfully helping grow our partners with AWS for the past 7.5 years. And while I'd love to talk to you about all the fabulous programs we offer, that is not why you're with us today. It is my pleasure, therefore, to introduce Nick Walton, Managing Director of AWS New Zealand. Nick will be looking at the local opportunity for success utilising AWS. Nick's actually a Kiwi, and he's just returned to New Zealand to take up this role. And he has that valuable mix of understanding the local market, understanding Kiwi ingenuity, along with understanding that global perspective that AWS can bring. Before we start, I'd like to remind you, if you can use the Q&A question panel on the site on the right of your screen. Nick will be making time to answer these questions right before the close of the formal session. So without further ado, Nick, it's over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Thursday. Thank you, Simone, for the introduction. And I wanted to jump in first and just quickly say, and make sure we didn't forget to do this, is just to say a big thank you, firstly, to the Westcon team, to Dave and Simone, Natasha and Monique. Thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning. And also, thank you for giving up your time and spending the next 20 minutes or so with me. In the next 20 minutes, there's really 3 things that I wanted to quickly cover. Firstly, I'm not sure who came up with the title, Cloud Computing with AWS, but it feels a little bit old school. And as I looked at it, I thought, you know what, I'd like to take a few minutes just to talk through the evolution of cloud computing. I've had the opportunity to be with AWS for 9 years now, and I've seen, I would say, 4 chapters of evolution, and I wanted to step through that, take the opportunity to do that. The second thing is that obviously we're all being impacted by COVID-19, and I wanted to share some observations on how we're seeing customers impacted and how we're seeing customers respond. And then finally, I had one recommendation that I wanted to finish with. So again, thank you for making time. I'm going to jump straight into it. So a brief history on cloud computing. I think there's really 4 chapters. I was looking back, and this is a slide that we used to present back in 2011, and I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this. But some people maybe aren't. And really the original proposition that we used to talk about with cloud computing was this concept of elastic infrastructure. And you've seen, this kind of contrast between traditional models of buying infrastructure in these big sort of chunks and having either waste where you're over-provisioned, or sometimes where you've got spikes in demand. In the old world, you weren't able to meet those spikes, and you had to satisfy customers. And obviously, with an elastic infrastructure, AWS pioneered, we're able to much more closely and easily and more efficiently meet the varied demand curves that you see in your infrastructure and on your applications. And so this was something we spoke about a lot, and customers got really excited about this. Really, there was some real key benefits to this kind of model. The first is it was just more efficient. So you didn't have that waste. You also were able to improve customer experience. And because you didn't have to wait for, weeks or months to get infrastructure, you could dial up infrastructure as you needed it, you could really improve time to market. And then the other thing we used to talk about was that it allowed you to really focus on your business and not focus on buying and maintaining data centers or building infrastructure and putting them into racks and cabling and all those kinds of things. So it freed up valuable resources to be able to focus on the needs of your business. And so this was the proposition we spoke about. And I think as we go through these different chapters, I think you'd agree that this proposition is still as compelling today as it was, 10 or 11 years ago. And so it's still something that, where we see customers still buying on-premise infrastructure. I think it's important that we continue to focus on the benefits of the elastic infrastructure aspect of cloud computing. As things evolved, though, we saw some things in the next few years starting to evolve, and it was kind of a combination of a number of things coming together. We saw, changes in architecture as people moved into microservices. We saw that development processes were rapidly evolving and people were embracing concepts like DevOps and CI, continuous integration, continuous deployment. And then people recognized that actually the maturity of AWS's APIs really allows this new way of delivering applications and doing this in a microservice architecture and leaning on extremely high levels of automation. And again, this gave a dramatic increase or reduction, I should say, in time to market. And it really allowed customers to start to innovate at a pace that they hadn't seen before. When you're able to deliver into production, in minutes rather than days, weeks, or months, it allows you to experiment much more quickly and develop better software that's more in line with the needs of your customers. We also saw this phase, this chapter of cloud computing, really delivering an incredibly increase in developer productivity. And this was something that our customers and we were getting really excited about. Again, it also took efficiency to the next level where you're able to even more closely align your infrastructure requirements with the needs of your business and do that in a really automated fashion. So this was what we saw in sort of 2014, 2015. We started to see this next chapter of cloud computing really evolve. The next chapter, I would say, was as the platform started to get more flexible and more capable, we saw an increasing focus on enterprise application modernization. And there are a few big buckets that we're seeing in this area. First is Windows on AWS. And we have 2 times the number of Windows server instances running in AWS than on Azure. And you see the kind of experience that people have and the benefits, both in terms of reliability and cost, of running Windows applications on AWS. And this became really exciting and continues to be the case. Also SAP, we see more SAP running on AWS than any other platform. And I remember in the early days, people used to say, well, one thing that will never go to the cloud is ERP. And when you look at the landscape today and the rapid move of ERP systems to AWS, it starts to get pretty interesting. Also at a database level and also moving these kind of monolithic SQL Server applications to microservices and cloud native, and then just migrating data centers. So this is kind of chapter 3 as we started to see customers getting really serious about enterprise application modernization and infrastructure modernization as well. And then that brings us to where we are today. And, if we look at the cloud and AWS and what that allows in the current landscape, we see some really interesting trends as AWS is becoming much more than just infrastructure, with a rich suite of artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. If you look at IoT, you start to look at these new paradigms of developing applications that leverage serverless. So you're not even looking at infrastructure. The infrastructure really disappears into the background, which is kind of the next level of developer productivity. And so we see incredible applications being developed on top of these tools, things like computer vision, building natural language into your applications, leveraging APIs, artificial intelligence and machine learning, advanced analytics, where people are really thinking about real-time analysis of huge data sets and leveraging AWS's scale and our suite of advanced analytics capabilities to build these amazing new applications, as well as things like AR, augmented reality and virtual reality, as well as applications across all kinds of different domains, from healthcare to automated and autonomous driving. Really, there's just this incredible explosion of creativity and innovation that we're seeing as customers are leveraging these tools to develop these next generation applications. And really, if you think about these advanced tools, that they're really allowing customers and partners to develop applications that they hadn't thought of before and solve problems that they hadn't thought possible to solve before. And so, again, really exciting to see this evolution of cloud computing continue into this new space. And so the interesting thing is that while this has been somewhat of an evolution over time, that today customers and partners are joining or getting into the cloud, not necessarily starting at infrastructure, although some may start in infrastructure, but many customers are jumping straight into these next generation applications. Other customers are saying, hey, our priority is really about modernizing our enterprise applications. Other companies are saying, well, we really want to embrace, digital innovation or transformation, and so we're embracing new ways of developing applications and thinking about what microservices and high levels of automation mean for us. And some are still looking at just, hey, we need more effective and scalable infrastructure. And so there's no one right or wrong way of getting on board with cloud computing. We really see customers starting at any number of different ways and plotting a path that meets the needs of their business. So I guess that's a really short history of the evolution of cloud, certainly from my perspective. And I hope you can relate to some of those phases and chapters, and perhaps think about the opportunities around those different chapters, if you will. So next up, what I wanted to do was spend a few minutes providing some observations around what we're seeing from customers and how they've responded to this unprecedented crisis of COVID-19. And again, I think we've sort of seen two phases in this respect. The first is really about how customers reacted to lockdown. And obviously, this is something that happened very quickly, and it had a profound impact on everyone and how we worked and lived and have been working and living for some time. And the obvious things that we saw was that there was a spike, a huge requirement for remote working. And we've seen customers leveraging our virtual desktop to help solve that. Some enterprise customers very quickly scaling up thousands of virtual desktops using AWS workspaces, which is an obvious one. But one of the other less obvious use cases that we've seen is Amazon Connect. This is our call center as a service offering. And as call centers have not only had to deal with the fact that their agents are working from home, but also many customers are seeing a significant increase in call volumes, that Connect is a great platform that's allowed customers to respond. One example is Trustpower, who are able to, in a matter of days, support hundreds of their agents working from home, and they're able to continue to be proactive, or rather productive, by using Amazon Connect to be able to support that. And they scaled up that platform literally in a few days. The other interesting thing that we've seen through lockdown is customers, some scaling down as they've seen, unfortunately, demand profiles reduce. And, I think for customers, this is one of the things about elastic infrastructure, is you can scale down and avoid wasting money. We've also seen many customers who have needed to scale up. And the obvious examples here are in the media industry. We've seen local media companies scaling up as people have been consuming more content. We've also seen an interesting customer example, PushPay, which is one of the startups that run their business on AWS. And they have an online donation system that's used by companies and not-for-profits around the world. With people unable to go to churches, then they've been providing donations through PushPay's platform, and they've seen a 200% increase in demand, and they've been able to scale up with AWS to easily meet that. Then the final thing that is universal, and I think this is both relevant during lockdown and as we move out of lockdown, that obviously everyone is extremely focused on cost. And this is something that we've worked really closely with our customers over the last few weeks to make sure that they're fully cost optimized. And through our efforts and the efforts of our partners, we've been able to save customers literally millions of dollars, giving them more runway or allowing them to positively impact their cost base. So that's kind of during lockdown. What's interesting now is we obviously and thankfully move to a post-lockdown world. We're seeing that companies, as they emerge into this post-lockdown business landscape that looks very different from the landscape that we saw 6 to 8 weeks ago. And we see companies asking questions like, do I have the right business model? Am I focused on the right customers? How do I fundamentally change my cost base for the long term? And then how do I innovate? How do I pivot my business if I need to? How do I quickly experiment and react to this new business landscape and new challenges and opportunities that are presented? And I guess my key point is that, cloud computing over the last 10 years has been an incredible technology to help customers. But I would suggest to you that the characteristics of cloud computing are more important today than they have been at any other time, as you look at the opportunity to drive more efficiency and reduce costs, but also truly embrace digital and cloud to be able to respond quickly, to move quickly, and we're seeing a growing number of customers who are looking to get serious about digital transformation and leveraging the cloud, because the customers that have been on the front foot with this and have been on, genuinely moving towards a digitally transformed future running on the cloud are by far, the best position to be able to respond, to a very different and challenging business landscape that we're faced with. So that was really, I guess, what we're seeing, and hopefully, that's interesting. I'm sure many of you are seeing these same trends play out. But I wanted to just pause for a minute and take some questions. So, Simone, over to you. But that's probably the first part of the presentation.
Yeah, look, Nick, we had through, although a large number of them have been on the data centre.
Sure.
Obviously topical. We've all been watching our 1 p.m. briefings, and we've seen that in the press recently, and we're just wondering what's the chances of getting one for AWS here in New Zealand?
Yeah. So if I look at our global infrastructure today with AWS, so we have 76 availability zones across 24 geographic regions around the world, and we're far from being done. We see this cloud computing opportunity is very, very big internationally, and we're continuing to invest in expanding around the world. And if I look at, you can highly expect us to continue to build infrastructure and data centers. If I look at the New Zealand context more specifically, so we've been in New Zealand for the last 7 years, and we have tens of thousands of customers ranging from startups to large enterprises across every industry, commercial and public sector. And we see these customers using our global infrastructure to get significant benefit and be able to grow their business and innovate. You know, companies like Xero, who are obviously a large customer and one of the fastest growing platform as a service companies around the world, leveraging AWS to grow. We've also seen, enterprise customers who are moving to AWS and seeing the benefits for that. So, we continue to look for and listen to our customers and listen to feedback. We've got a list of places we want to go next, and we're continuing to evaluate and make decisions around that. So, yeah. Sorry,
I think people want to do that part.
Sorry, Simone, I just lost you.
No, that's fine. That was obviously my popular question, but we have had a couple of other really good ones, and I'm just wondering, given there are going to be some people dropping off, if perhaps maybe we could address some of them after this. Some of them are tied to sort of COVID, some of them are tied to doing partners days, those sorts of things. So I'll let you sum up, and thank you very much for all the questions from the audience. We have got those, and we will get back to you with some answers and share that about. Thanks.
Cool. So just to wrap up, what I wanted to do was just make one recommendation, and that is that the number one thing, can you bring the slides back up with that? So yeah, so the one final thing I wanted to finish on was that there is a universal thing that remains incredibly important. It was important pre-COVID, and it continues to be important. That is cloud skills. And there's one recommendation I can make for both our customers and partners is use this opportunity to build the skills, that are required to help customers through this next phase of digital transformation and cloud migration. And we've at AWS provided a huge number of our courses now available online for free. So please leverage those from our website. Also, Westcon, as one of our great partners, have a really well-developed training and certification capability. Obviously, we've been needed to pivot our sort of delivery of training from being classroom in some cases. We're now delivering lots of these courses virtually and seeing actually pretty good results in helping provide customers and partners with the skills that they need to help us with this next phase of responding to COVID. So with that, that's all I had. Thank you very much again for your time. Hope that was interesting, and appreciate the questions. I think we'll come back to those and address those. We're just out of time, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nick. Great having you here.
Thanks, Simone. Thanks, everyone.